Wow, good morning. I gotta admit, I have 3 confessions to make. The first confession is I'm very nervous. I've never spoken to a room full of developers. 2, I'm not a developer. I was one. And I can still code in COBOL. Anybody here code in COBOL? Anybody who can code in COBOL? Well, I'm a unique developer in this room. I might get a salary better. Third is Airtel is a sponsor for this event, which means I need to sell to you. That's what I paid to do. We pay a lot of money so we can get access to all of you so that we can tell you everything about how Airtel is great about. But while I'm going to do that a bit, I really wanted to talk to all of you on how important the decisions you make can affect the company. How many of you are in startup today? Anybody? How many of you are working for a startup? Wow, the startups must be laying off a lot of people. There are not many people here. How many of you are in GCCs, back office development centers? How many of you work for companies like Airtel, traditional legacy companies? Okay, either you're not raising your hand or you're all jobless. So, I was with Sequoia Capital. I was advising few startups, and I went through the journey of startups quite a bit, right? And the journey goes like this. So, normally when Sequoia Capital is investing, these guys have reasonably scaled, right? They've got a Series A funding, they've got customers. If you're a B2C customer, you've been asked to spend a lot of money so that you can go acquire customers. And all of them have gone into a cloud partner. And they didn't decide this based on anything except that there were credits given, free credits given, or her classmate worked in that company. So they started with one of AWS, Google, whatever, which ones they could hand down. And they wrote the code so fast that it can only work on that cloud. Because we were supposed to launch that product pretty soon. And then that code, that application is a B2C application. I'm assuming it's a B2C application. It needs a CDN, right? Because you have to deploy it somewhere. It has to be faster. There's only one CDN available in the country. Let's just go get it. And it's only meant to run on that CDN. It won't run on any other CDN, right? Third is suddenly the storage becoming faster. So you have to store all the data, 5 years, 7 years. Suddenly the storage cost is going up the roof. Let's just keep provisioning it on the same hyperscaler. And suddenly for putting your data out, you're paying a lot of money. It's called egress cost. Have anybody seen this? Yeah, it's really robbing telecom. Basically, they buy fixed pipe from me and then charge you egress cost. That's what they do. It's just taking telecom asset and converting into egress cost. And then you will come to and say, look, I've got all these customers who are interacting with your application. I need to communicate to them. I need to send them SMS. I need to send them WhatsApp. And they have a call center need now, suddenly. Because your application is working, you're having sales, they need to return the latest shoe they bought. They got to have a call center. Okay, let's go get a call center. And put 100 people, just give them. Suddenly, the percentage of revenue, for every 100 rupees you make in revenue, these companies were spending up to 50 rupees on all of this. 50% of their revenue is being spent on compute, network, CDN, and just communicating with your customers. Where is the money for customer acquisition? Where is the money for marketing? Where is the money for paying all of you so that the developers can build products? And suddenly the money has run out. Now you have to become profitable. There's no more funding. Where do you go? Some smart guy like me will come and call myself an advisor and say your percentage of revenue on compute is 20%. A good benchmark says you have to be at 3%. Now what do you need to do? You got to rewrite the whole freaking code. It has to become cloud agnostic. It has to use multi-CDN. It needs to communicate with API so that you can actually bring down the cost of communication. And, oh, by the way, the business is growing, You need to introduce features, new features. No CTO is going to agree to migrate out of a hyperscaler. Any CTO is here? How many CTOs here? Product heads? Okay. So none of them, when I speak to them, they all know this is a problem, but it's a problem they have inherited. Nobody is going to do, and I know I have active conversations going on with few very highly scaled up companies. Let me take an example of one who's spending 500 crores every year on everything I discussed. Just compute everything, not product, nothing. 500 crores. And the revenue is how much? 5,000 crores. No profits, revenue, 5,000 crores. Airtel, we spend 500 crores. And our revenue is 1 lakh crore. And we store the maximum amount of data anybody can think of in this country. We have all your phone numbers, your call records, your SMS. We have 40 crore customers in our database. We run 25,000 VMs. It's actually bigger than SBI and ICICI combined. We probably process trillion transactions in a month. We spend half a basis point, which is about 50 basis point of revenue on all of this. So as developers, I was very curious on the decisions you make. You are thinking about what schema to use. Let's not change the schema. Let us not, how about reusability? How about encapsulating? Those are all very interesting, amazing decisions to make because I don't know any of them and I can't understand anything what they say. But the decisions you make as a developer, as a techie, as an architect on what cloud to use, what CDN to use, how do you communicate to your customer has a more important impact whether the company will survive or not. Because as you scale, this is going to become extremely critical for all of you to decide, right? So now that I've got your attention, let me do the sales part a bit. So as a decision maker, so one, you have to figure out how do you want to make sure your computing is allowing you to stay closer to your customer? How will you make sure that you connect to the cloud? Has anybody figured out that you have to connect to the cloud? Your customers have to connect to the cloud? How many of you are Airtel customers? Everybody. Thank you very much. Airtel 5G Plus, please go. But how many of you worry about how data centers connect to cloud? You're developing an application for branches, retail branches. That application is used by your retail branch. How should they connect to the cloud? Have you thought about it? So I'll give you an example. Office 365, right? Everybody wants to know Office 365, put in Azure. From Office 365, there are bank branches who need to check email. Simple, check email, access OneDrive. Banks are all running on, how much network? 2 Mbps. 2 Mbps is all the network they have at the branch. The minute you talk about digitization, I want to move application, their bandwidth needs goes up. Suddenly, everybody is wanting to check email. That branch has to come to the data center first. Because you developers make all these decisions. Everybody should come to the data center. You will apply security policy in the data center. And then from that data center, you allow the people to go to the cloud. The right people should go to the cloud, the wrong people shouldn't go to the cloud. So to do this, the company needs to buy connectivity from each branch, not 2 Mbps because the bandwidth has gone up. So you need to buy 4, 10, 20. You bring everybody to the data center chokes. And then you connect them to the cloud, they will tell you, your application is not working, it's very slow. I just took Azure example. This could be true for any of the applications you develop. They will say the application is slow. You will say, look, it's just the telecom, just so stupid, like they are slow, maybe you should go for 5G. Yeah, that's what we will tell them. But there is a better design. I can actually take you from the branch straight to Microsoft. You don't need to come to the data center. And you don't need all these SASE, Zscaler, security, it's all making money. It's just making money because the network, if it is designed as a closed MPLS WAN, you don't need all of this. You don't have to go to internet to access the cloud. What I'm saying is that you don't worry about this network decision at all. How many of you think about how your applications will connect to cloud? Anybody who thinks? How many of you think what technology that cloud should be developed on? Java, Python? All of you, right? You don't really think about the network. Your application performance is going to depend upon where that cloud is and how do you connect. The third thing, you have to communicate with your customer. You have to send SMS, you have to send WhatsApp. That's a lot of cost. Suddenly the marketing department is spending a lot of money because every transaction has to be confirmed. Have you thought about which platform to use? Why should you use that platform? How do you optimize the application performance? How many of you have tried to watch Jio Cinema IPL? Is it working? No, because we're not using our CDN. That's the whole point, right? People, my point is that application is not designed for 1 crore people to watch video. Today, all textbooks across the government for all standards is digitally made available. Those textbooks are video enabled and every student in the country can access it digitally. Phenomenal effort by the government of India. It doesn't work in developed countries. The whole thing runs on Airtel CDN. You need to make sure that your application is multi-CDN enabled, so that if Akamai screws you up with 1 rupee per gigabytes, you have another option. I'm not necessarily saying Airtel, but you have another option. Don't use AWS CDN just because you're using AWS Compute. And if you're using Azure, you have an option to choose your CDN because Azure doesn't have a CDN on its own. So please think about how you will optimize your performance on CDN. Everybody's talking about 5G and IoT. Anybody working on a 5G startup? Please talk to us because we believe 5G can change the world. During COVID, we all knew the pizza we ordered, right? Where it is. We all knew where the shoe we ordered, which we were going to return anyway, but we knew every second where that shoe was, right or wrong? We didn't know where our oxygen cylinders were. True, right? We didn't know our oxygen medicines or why. Why is that the case? Because you're all developing applications for the front end. The whole country's front end has been digitized. I can order food for 10 minutes. I can do movie tickets. I can book Uber. I can do Ola. I can buy my shoes. I can buy my dress. But the back end of the whole country is not digitized. Our supply chain is not digitized. Our factories are not digitized. Our warehouses are not digitized. It is still a very manual effort because lack of broad network has affected this. If you are thinking about a B2C startup, please look at a B2B startup. There is so much money to be made. 5G and IoT is going to change the way we live. It's going to be true. 5 years from now, mark my words, I would have retired. You will all be Zooming yourselves here. You won't be physically here. That will be the best application of 5G. So please look at some of this. How do you secure your organization? I'm sure you have your InfoSec. They're running the APT test, telling you your application doesn't work. You need to make sure that we rewrite the code. That happens, right? Does it happen? You have an InfoSec team? How many of you like your InfoSec team? How many of you are InfoSec people here? Because I have to seriously wonder what you guys do for a living. You're never raising your hand for anything. They're hiring at Airtel, so please apply. So you have important decisions to make, and as Airtel, don't think of us as just a telecom. We can help. So I'll just quickly do this, my sales pitch. Vultr and Edge. Vultr is an hyperscaler alternative for developers like you who needs control, who needs the flexibility, but doesn't want to pay for the cost. What we have brought to India is an hyperscaler compute which is bundled with generous egress. So if you are developing an application which is video sensitive, if it is hungry for data going out, please think about Vultr. We've also launched our own edge compute. We have about 120 edge data centers. We have built an edge cloud. which can give you 5 to 7 millisecond latency. So if you're thinking about video applications, security, analytics, you need compute closer to where your customers are, and we can bring this to you. Multi-cloud connect. I talked about B2B application. We can connect your customers, if they are retail branches, bank branches, to any cloud using single pipe. We can connect them to Azure for Office 365. We can connect them to AWS for their business application. We can connect them to Google for the analytics-based application. So please think about this design as you develop this, because this will actually simplify things and save a lot of money for your customer. The communicating to the end application. So we have a product called CPaaS, which can help you to communicate with your customers across every channel. SMS, WhatsApp, phone call. You don't need to integrate with 3 different platforms. Your APIs can integrate with one, and that should work. Audio performance, your application is optimized. CDN, we have our own CDN. I talked about 5G and IoT. We also have security services which can help. The key message I'm giving you is Airtel can do a little bit more than your 4G and more mobility. We have an infra company. We can do cloud and CDN. And we can do security and help you communicate with your customer. But more importantly, the decisions you make is going to decide if the company is going to survive or not. It is not about the coolest technology. It's about how much money you're going to spend as a percentage of revenue. Please make those decisions knowing well that a multi-cloud, multi-CDN, using a very open API to communicate with the customer is a much better option for you than tying yourself with proprietary platforms. Thank you.